So everyone, welcome to today's channel, and today we are going to do a simple app called a quote app, and we are going to be using Flutter and Riverpod for its state management, and also we are going to build a little backend using Xano. And let's get started. All right, so I'm going to go over to Xano and try to build up this app. Okay, so what this app does is that um, it displays quotes from popular authors that you know, and it's display one quote per day. All right, and when you click on this little button called like a refresh button, it's going to refresh and give you another quote. So let's move over to move over to Xano. Okay. Alrighty. Okay. All right, Zano. This is how my Zano dashboard look like. Zano is a no-code backend that allows you to build APIs without writing a single code. And I've sort of built a simple code app and a code backend using Xano. So let me try to delete it all over again, and we'll start from scratch. Okay, so all right, so once you sign into Xano, this is what you are going to see. And so let's get started. I'm going to call the workspace codes and click on continue. It's going to ask me, do I want to build it myself? And I'm building it myself. I'm starting from scratch, or you can use templates, but let's use the start from scratch. Okay, it's going to tell you that do you want to start with a few database table, but let's just call this one codes, and the API should have CRUD, which means it can create, read, and update. And so next, which table contains your user? We don't have a table that contains our user, so we won't select any of this. Let's say no login required. All right, so and we are in, it has created an instance of Xano for us, and in this instance we are going to create a simple create, read, update, and delete using Xano. And once we have created this backend, we will now go over to Flutter and see how we can use Riverpod to do state management in the Flutter app itself. Okay, so the next thing is to add contents to the database, and we already have a table called codes, and in this table it has an ID and it has created the date of creation, so it automatically generates an ID for us, and we can add a column which we are going to call the code itself. Is it required? Yes. And we're going to save it, and in this code also we are going to have a text, and it will contain the name of the author that has the code, like we did in our mobile app. All right, and I can have something like I've missed 9,000 shots in my career, like the Michael Jordan quotes. So I've lost almost 3 of them games 26 times. Okay, so I'm going to stop here, and we can go back to update that. So the author is Michael Jordan. All right, so we have created a simple record that returns a code. Now let's go back to the API. And Xano, interesting thing about Xano is that Xano creates some sort of APIs for us, so we don't have to create them by ourselves. So if we go to Explorer, see it has created the get, the post, and the delay. So this is the documentation on Swagger, and once I open that, and I have the Swagger documentation, and if I go to get, it's going to create query all codes to record, and if I try that out and click on execute, see it has returned a response for us. So that concludes the backend building with Xano. It's very straightforward, so you can go ahead and check out xano.com. Okay, so let's switch over to building the app now. Okay, all right, yeah. So back to our app. The first thing we need to do is to sort of create a okay, so let's go over to how our app is structured in the first place. Now we have a couple of screens here that I've created before, and this is the home. I have only, I'm going to delete this couple of stuff, and I have only this stuff here, and this is the design for the page that you are seeing over here on the emulator. And what it consists is it has a scaffold, then I added a save area to the body, and it has a container that have a height and width, and then it's a bunch of columns, and then it's a column and then text and other stuff. And for the refresh, I just added a clip over the material and an icon dot refresh, and then I have an on top when I wrapped it all in Inkwell. Okay, it's as simple as that. You can ignore this dashboard. I can actually delete that. We are not using that. Okay, also we have the main.darts, like the conventional mail.dart, nothing fancy. It goes to the home screen that I've shown before, and also I created the repository. This is a repository that allows me to query the client. We are going to break it down in a couple of minutes before our 1 hour elapses. We are going to change a whole lot of things, and then you have the model, and then there's a folder called Qubit, which I'm not going to be using. I'm going to delete that. Alrighty. Okay, so the first thing I'd want to do is to have a folder called services. This is where all my API calls goes to. All right, and I'm going to have another folder. I'm going to call it my view model. Some prefer to have the view model folder in its own place, and some prefers it to be beside the screen, to have your view model beside your presentation layer. But whatever way you like it, it's fine. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do, I have a model here, quote model. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to create another model from the Xano that we have created the other time. And okay, so I'm going to give me a minute to switch over. I don't know how to switch the stuff yet. Okay. So here is the model, and so I'm going to copy this. There's a tool that allows you to generate models, and if you go to what's the site again, quicktype.io. Quicktype.io is a place that allows you to generate models from JSONs. Okay, so let's open QuickType, and you see how I create models faster in using QuickType. So I'm going to paste the JSON that I created, and I'm going to call it quotes model. That's like our quotes model. Now you see it has generated a quotes a quotes class for us, and this is the quote model, and has created an ID, created art, and the quote itself, and the author. All right, saves a lot of time, so I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to use that in my app. Yes. Okay, so we are back to the screen, and so here, and once I have pasted that, we have a quote model already. Okay, so the next thing is a service. So this service will be an API service that lets us connect to the API that we created in Xano. So I'm going to create a new file called code service dot. You can decide to call it code API service, anyone that works for you. And in this code API service, what I am going to do is quite interesting. You probably have seen it somewhere before, and we're going to create a class called code service, and so this is where we are going to be implementing our codes, that the implementation of the code API itself. Okay, so that's so what I'm going to do is to use a package called Duo. Duo allows you to do API, to call API services. It's just like the HTTP package that you know of, but I have added it in my prospect.yaml file, so I have it here as Duo. So you can go over to pub.dev and add that package, and so let me go back to my code service, and I'm going to call Duo here, and Duo is quite right there. So I'm going to import that. Marvin and issues importing. Okay, before it comes up, I'm going to have a code service, a constructor code service, and I'm going to copy a couple of code here, which I'm going to explain what it does. Okay. So I have the okay, so I'm going to import the library pack Dio right now. So these guys get imported easily. I'm going to remove this guy, we don't need that. And in the base URL, we go back to our Xano on the Swagger link. You will be able to see, let me pull that over to this screen. If we go back, I'm trying to go, okay, so let me find that screen. Give me a minute. Alright, so this screen is here, and this is the base request URL that we are going to use. So I'm going to copy that to my clipboard, and paste it here. Okay, so that is our base URL, and the next thing would be to take care of this pretty Dio logger. And what it does is that it's a package that allows you to log Dio's request and response on your debug console. So if you make an API calls, it's going to return if it's successful or not. Okay, so it's, if you can see the package on pub.dev, and so you can go over to pub.dev. I'm going to paste the version here. It's a version 1.1.1. When you save that, it's going to do a pub get, and you will get that on your environment. While that is happening, there is a package that I'd like to bring over, and it's Riverpod, because we are going to use it for state management. So let me bring it over here, and we are fine with Riverpod. Going to save that. So and now let's bring in pretty Dio logger. We import that library here, yes, and we have pretty Dio logger. Now let's write the service to get the codes. So I'm going to write a method and a feature, and it's going to return the code model. And we are going to call it get codes, and it's going to be async because yeah, it's going to be async. And then we are going to provide the URL of this, and so we'll find that later. So I'm going to do a try catch when I do a service call. Try and res equals to await Dio that get. We are doing a get, so it's asking us for the path, and it will be URL. Okay, now we have let me do a response here. So now we have a response from the get, and we can do our code model, which is, and let me call it a result. and we have a code model that from JSON we will pass the data that we get from our response, and it's going to map that with our class so that we will be able to return the result object itself. And it's going to return that. Yes. Alright, it's going to return that. Now for the catch, what I like to do is that I like to do undo error catch E. So what it means is that when there is an error from deal, that the deal catches that error, this is what you should do. And I'm going to print the error in case there's an error with that error. And also show that error itself. Alright. Okay, so that's that for us. For the URL, let's grab the URL from Swagger. Okay, so back to Swagger. If we look at this, it's a /quotes. This is the request URL. This forms our base URL that we copied, and this forms our URL itself for the get method. Okay, so for the URL it will be /quotes. So it's going to append this quotes behind this, and we are good to go. All right, so what we are going to do next is to go to our code repository. This repository is responsible for getting the content from the API, and then you can do your manipulation that you want inside here. I have a couple of stuff that I've done here, but I'm going to delete them so we can write that from scratch. And I'm going to delete that. So our repository is like this. We have a constructor called the codes. We have a constructor called the codes repository, but we are not going to use this. Now there's a package that I like to use. Now we need access to our code service. Now there's a package that I like to use, and it's get it. Get it is a package, but let's see if we can just use the service directly here. So I can do a code service, and I call it the code service equals to code service. So in case you want to call services in different places, you can use the get it package to do that. Now since I can call that, I will do a future a code model. It returns code model, and I'm going to do get codes, and it will be an async like you guessed. Yeah. Now I do a final codes equals to the await of code service that we have up there, the get codes, and then we can return codes. Okay, so why we have a repository is that you can do your manipulation here before you pass that to your view model. Also, you can decide to test this repository itself without tampering with your API service. Also, you can mock this repository if you want to write tests, you can mock this repository. You don't mock the code service, you mock the repository itself, and you'll be able to carry out the tests that you want on this. This makes sense. Now now that we have that, so we can create a view model now. So I have imported Riverpod for our view model. So let's go and create for a view model. I'm going to call a new file codes view model dot I like to do a shorthand, code vm dart. Now in this code vm, I'm going to do a class code view model that extends a change notifier. So it extends change notifier. Change notifier is a class that that can be extended or mixed in, that provides a change notification API using void callback for notification. So if you want something to be updated in the provider or Riverpod, you can use a change notifier, or you can use a state notifier. So let's have a couple of boolean. So if we have we can have a loading, we initialize it as false. We have we can have error, initialize that as false. We can have success, and we initialize that as false as well. Okay, so that is fine. Now we can create a method, a feature that we get data from, this one we call get codes, that we get data from our repository. And I like to use a try catch here. And so here our loading is going to become true, because here we are telling it that we are trying to call an API here, are trying to do something. And then we are going to call the notify listeners to notify loading that it has changed the value to false. And now we can do a res equals to await. Now we need our repository, and how do you do that? You call your repository here, go to repository, equals to new code repository. You may decide not to use the new keyword, I love it. So we have the codes repository dot get codes, which works. Now await is complaining, is asking us to add the async modifier here. Now we need to be able to pass this res somewhere, and we can say codes model. You can initialize codes model here and call it codes. And so what we are going to do, codes equals to res, that works. And then you can notify listeners. Now here you can implement errors here, whatever you want errors to do. So sorry. So your error will turn to true here, and then you can do a notify listener. If you want to know why that error happened, you can have a message here, and then you can do this e.toString and pass it to the message. Then you can show to the user what has happened here. Now I think we are almost done. One last thing is to expose the provider. So let's call it quotes provider equals to change notifier provider is of type of quotes view model, and then I'm going to have a ref. Okay, and I'm going to return a quotes view model. Now, this change notifier provider is from Riverpod. It should be from Riverpod. And so to import Riverpod, we have already installed Riverpod, Flutter, Riverpod. Have we installed it or not? This is Flutter Riverpod. What's happening? So let's install that first, and then we see what is happening. Pause, there's an issue with that. That's what happens when you have a slow network. Okay, I think that has installed and still can't, do not understand what Riverpod is. Let me install another one, Hooks Riverpod, and see if that package is contained there. Okay, oh, we have it here already. So we don't need Hooks Riverpod, but it's installed already, so we are good to go. Now we have all our services. We have the code service, the repository, and the view model. Now we need to work with the presentation layer, what the users see now. Right. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is on our main app, and we need to let Riverpod know that we should use him. I think that's how they say it. So you are going to wrap your app itself. You are going to wrap it in a widget called provider scope. Provider scope, so that it can provide for all the children of my app. Yeah. Alright, so I think we are good to go. Now let's go to the presentation layer, and this will be in our screen, our home screen. Now for our home screen, I like to use something we call hooks, and you can get that using Flutter hooks. If you are from React background, I'm not from React background, but I get that hooks is very important in React, so we don't have much time, so let's get this over with. So I have installed Flutter hooks. I am going to transform our state. I'm going to transform our home screen into another widget called the hook widget. It's from Flutter hooks, you can see. So that means we don't need to put in a stateful widgets if you want to do states. If you want to use states in this. Okay, so anything you want to do, you now have to do it in your build context. Now let's do final codes view model. Let me just call it VM for short. Use provider codes provider. Okay, now for the use provider, you see hooks Riverpod, you can use it here. Now one thing I'd also use is, okay, I think we are fine. Okay, one thing I need to do now is when I call this use provider, and I should create a constructor here that is called codes view model, so that anytime I call this class, something gets called, and it should be the get called, so that I have data handy when I'm calling that provider. Okay, so that is fine. Yeah, now I can do codes VM if code VM dot loading is true. I should do a center that has a charge circular load progress indicator. Okay, progress indicator. So we want to show an indicator, else we will show the column. So if the loading is true, we will show a circular progress indicator. Okay, that is fine. And yeah, can only be using a hook. Yes, I understand. All right, so let's refresh this. Okay, you see loading, it's already loading. It's already loading, and it has returned, if you check this, it has returned something. Okay, but look at the response that is returned. It returned a list. This is a list, and what we are returning since is a single object. So let's go back to our service and let's return a list. Let's return a list. Let's return a list. Let's see, can I do this? I need to pass it to a list, and let me see what I can do. I need to return a list here. Result that Okay, so I need to do a list, okay, a list of quotes model, and then do a list here, a list of quotes model from JSON. Okay, so according to the tool that we generated the other time, so if I go to code model, it already has it for me here, so I just need to copy that, and I'll be able to use that. That saves me a lot of time. And so yeah, put it here. So okay, I'm supposed to expose the data, and I'm going to do a final list of quotes model equals to this returns list code model quotes. Okay, so I'm returning quotes here. So this solves our problem, and yeah, so this solves our problem. So we go back to our repository. Now we tell it that we are expecting a list here, and for our view model, I'm going to also tell it that I am expecting a list of codes model, which will be our codes. Okay, so that will solve our problem. And going back to our home, go back home, and I can okay, so now to use this, I can delete the static data here, and then do quotes VM that where's our codes, and then for now I can do the index of 0 and then the quote itself. Also for the author, I can do Michael Jordan, instead of Michael Jordan, and the author. That solves our problem. Now for the refresh, I'll do quotes VM dot get quotes. So anytime I click on the that, it is going to do get quotes, and get quotes calls the refresh, and then it will refresh. So let's reload our app. I think we should be fine now. okay, the get is happening here. And we have the data returned, but it is not showing. So let's see what is happening. So if it is loading, if the loading is true, it should be. As it is loading is false. So let's go back to our code provider. Okay, so we're not telling it to, we are not returning it back to false. So it is still loading. So we did not tell it, we did not notify it again that it should return to false. So let's do that and save that, and that should fix our problem. So let's load our app again, and we should be fine this time around. Okay, we are calling. Okay, so we have the method was called on null. So we are having an error here, which I can't see. Let's go back to the code VM, and it's saying it is called on null. This is a list. You know what? I am going to just give it a quote. Instead of a list here, I'm going to do just the quote itself, just one quote. So I can do the index of this, so it should bring only one quote. And for this, I should be fine. Okay, so it's returning null now. Okay, so something is happening here. Let's try to do this again. Let's see. So it's returning null now. So this that returns is not the problem. Now is that this does not get passed to my codes, and I'm doing it in a notifier listener there. So let's do a print, and I want to see this rest itself. And we can see that okay, so there's a problem. Let me add a breakpoint there and see if it comes back. It does not. Let's go inside and put breakpoints here. It does not get here. So let's go inside there and put a breakpoint there. does not. How about here? Wow. So how about now? Okay. So we can see where the error is from. So it was when we were passing, this. I don't think it's passing very well. And quote model from JSON. So what is happening here? I think it's the way this thing is passing, and I can't debug it because I don't know what is happening. Oh, so let me use it directly. I don't think that's the issue, but let's see. Dot data. It's a string, and let's see. Okay, so let's return it back to. You can spend a whole lot of time debugging this. Debugging takes quite a couple of time, especially if you don't know why it's wrong. Let's step inside it. Error equals to true. Okay, so let me print what the error says here. Either to string. Okay. So it's back. Okay. List dynamic is not a subtype of string. So it gives us an idea of what is happening right now. Okay, so that's not the issue because it's done a list. This guy, list dynamic. So let me do that. List dynamic is now a subtype of string. What did I touch? List. Oh, I touched the wrong one. Let me take these away. And take these away and pass it directly like this. Let's see if that works. No, it doesn't. All right, so I think I am going to stop the stream here. Okay, so I have about 2 minutes to finish up this. Let's see if I can finish this up. Okay, I think I have sent this out for project done. Let me see. Let me do a little Google and see what that is. Okay, so I have seen I've encountered something like this before. So I'm checking one of my projects and see exactly how I implemented there. Let's see. Okay, so okay, yeah, dot map. Let me desist from using this guy and use it directly. Okay, so let me use a method called think the method called from JSON Increasing x to list. There's a method called to list, I think. Feature. Okay, we are almost there. Dynamic is not. What are you doing? Okay, I think I know where the problem is. I think I'm not supposed to use a JSON code here. First type string. Okay, this can save us a lot of misery. And okay, I'll just expand data. Okay. Finally, it comes back. Instance of quote mode. Okay. So now we need to find out. Okay, it's returning an instance of quote model. Now we go back home, and it has to be dot quote dot author. Okay, yay! We are finally done. Whew. So we use 1 hour 7 minutes 26 seconds. Yeah, it's still within the range of an hour because we started a little early. So what I did is so apparently I was trying to do a JSON decode, but what is coming is actually a list from the response.data. So I am not supposed to do a JSON decode there. What I did was to just map the list straight up. Like, I don't know the kind of list that is coming, so once I get it, I just map every item in every item that is coming, and then use it in this and return the quote model dot from JSON, which returns a quote model, and then pass that to be a list so that it recognizes that this is a list. Alrighty, there you go. So we are done with the Quotes app, and I hope you are able to get one or two things from this live stream. So if you hit the refresh button, it's going to call that, and let me remove all the breakpoints here, and it returns it for you. Yay! All right, there you go. If you have any questions, reach out to me on Twitter at olu_Tayomi. If you are I'm going to push this on GitHub and put the link in the description somewhere, so if you are interested, you can go into this code and extend it. Also, remember to subscribe to my channel. Hit the subscribe button, smash it. I'm going to be doing a lot of streams like this. We are going to be doing projects from scratch in 1 hour. All right, thank you, bye.